In Japanese folklore, many animals have the capacity to obtain a yokai status. Either by performing a specific feat or living long enough, they can attain supernatural powers and wacky characteristics. The creature I have for you today is one such animal, capable of evolving into a far more dangerous and powerful entity. This beast is the Hanzaki, or Japanese giant salamander. The name itself is a regional one for the actual animal, which makes this one of the rare occurrences where there is no difference in nomenclature between the regular creature and its supernatural counterpart. While it does make research awkward, it does kind of serve a purpose. It highlights how becoming a yokai is just a natural part of the animal's life cycle, without any level of metamorphosis between the stages. In case you have never seen a Japanese giant salamander, here's one. Look at the goofy little eyes, the adorable tiny fingers, and the massive bulk that is their body. They are the third largest extant species of amphibians, which is sort of the inspiration for the Hanzaki legend. According to the folklore, they can grow much bigger than what we usually see. In fact, they can obtain a size big enough to devour humans and livestock. Unfortunately, I do not know if there is a set length or weight beyond which they are considered yokai, or if they only earn the status once becoming genuinely dangerous. Granted, the one legend that has persisted to this day begins at the human-eating stage, so that is what seems to really matter. Other than their colossal stature, there is no difference in appearance between a Hanzaki that is still growing and one that snatches up entire cows. In fact, even the color variation seems to translate to the yokai version, but more on that a bit later. The description is still in order. So, Hanzaki, like regular salamanders, have a large round head with their mouth extending across its width. They have numerous tiny teeth and a powerful bite even at their regular size. Their eyes are small, and while the actual animals have poor eyesight, this cannot be the case for the yokai, not if they are hunting riverside passers-by. Their body structure, and especially their tail, is designed for an aquatic lifestyle, with their wart-covered skin serving as perfect camouflage against the riverbed. While the appropriately sized salamander consumes various river arthropods, worms, fish and other amphibians, with an increased girth comes a greater appetite. Humans and livestock are the only named food source for the really big boys, and there is no information on the intermediary stages, but livestock does encompass animals of varying sizes. So far, it would be perfectly reasonable to draw the conclusion that a Hanzaki is just a Japanese giant salamander, but big. This assumption is further reinforced by the fact that there are a few interesting superstitions about the animal, some of which could apply to both. Emphasis on could, but let me elaborate. First off, the Hanzaki name is a combination of the words half and cut, referring to the belief that the animal survives being cut in half. Now, incredible regenerative abilities are not rare in the animal kingdom, and even vertebrates can possess the capacity to regrow limbs and organs. The axolotl is a perfect example, as they too are salamanders. However, being cut in half is too much, even for them. Their chunky cousins are not too dissimilar in that they also have the ability to regenerate bones. That being said, I found no direct evidence or study that suggests they can regrow entire limbs, but to be fair, it is not impossible. Half of their body is quite a different question though. Either way, we are not yet done with the name, as there is also the matter of the kanjis used. The symbols combine the words fish and child, referring to the sound it makes. Apparently the call of the Hanzaki resembles a human baby. Let's have a listen. Would not be the first thing I associate a call with, but fair enough I guess. While most of the information we can gather on the Hanzaki actually comes from its real-life version, there's quite a bit of additional lore in the form of a legend. I have found two slightly different variations on the same legend, which talk about a massive Hanzaki that lived near Yubara. One source states that the beast was active during the Warring States period, which encompasses about 2 centuries between 476 BC and 221 BC, but That clashes with the other date we have. The legend itself is supposed to take place during the first year of Bunroku, which would be 1593. I guess we could charitably infer that the Hanzaki appeared during the former period and was only fought back against about 2000 years later. Either way, the haunt of the beast was called Ryuzu no Fuchi, or Dragon's Head Abyss. From there, it snatched people and livestock alike. During said year, a young lad named Miura no Hikoshiro, or Hikoshiro Mitsui, the sources vary, resident of Mukayuhara village, decided to do something about the monster. His plan involved grabbing a tanto, tying a rope to his waist, and jumping into the water with the hopes of getting devoured. Yeah, it's one of those plans. He wanted to cut the beast open from the inside. I guess he was lucky the Hanzaki managed to gulp him in one go without a bite. The soft innards of the massive amphibian were no match for sharpened metal, and the protagonist cut its belly open. And thus, the terror of the monster came to an end with Hikoshiro's intervention. When hauled from the water, the beast was measured to be 10 to 11 meters in length and 5 meters in girth. Rather weird measurements, to be honest, but more on that later, as the story does not end here. While in many legends the triumphant defeat of a monster signals the end, it is more of a halfway point and a genre shift. You see, once the Hanzaki was defeated, strange happenings began to haunt the village, and especially Hikoshiro's family. Night after night there was something banging on the door, with an eerie cry accompanying the noise. However, when the young hero would go and check, there was nothing outside. Not soon after, him and his entire family died. While it is not detailed as to what went on in the village, the haunting was not localized to one house. The villagers began to suspect that the ghost of the Hanzaki cursed them. Fearing for their life, they erected a small shrine nearby to trap and placate the beast's spirit, worshipping it as a god. They named it Hanzaki Daimyojin. Their efforts paid off, as the curse was lifted. Now, one would struggle to decipher the exact moral of this tale. I guess it is meant to say that nature is best left undisturbed, even if it is destructive, as meddling will inevitably lead to more trouble. Which, well, it does not really stand up to scrutiny. I mean, they had a genuine menace, an overgrown beast that could only exist at their expense. If they would have thought in advance about enshrining the spirit, they would have had no trouble really. Even from the perspective of the Hanzaki, sure, it died, but now it is a god, worshipped by an entire village. I struggle to not see this as a win-win situation. Either way, in spite of the wonky message, the tale did expand our understanding of the Hanzaki. They are not just massive, but possess supernatural powers, ones that manifest once they leave this corporeal form. It also seems that the kaiju salamanders no longer have the supposed miraculous healing powers of the little ones. Our antagonist wasn't even cut in half and still died. The Hanzaki Daimyojin exists to this day and is likely the main reason this beast has not faded into complete obscurity. To placate the murderous powers of the undead amphibian, or to give genuine respect to a deity they now worship, locals of Yubara organize the Hanzaki festival each year. The events include a haunted house with kids dressed as assorted yokai, various games of chance, the singing of the Hanzaki song, as well as a march following two massive floats depicting the animal or yokai. The darker one is supposed to be a male, while the reddish represents a female Hanzaki. Now, normally it is impossible to differentiate the sexes of these animals unless you look at their cloaca during breeding season, you sick bastard. However, the color variation is indeed something we can see with the real animals. The hue of their hide can range from really dark brown or grey to light pink or yellow, even within a single population. It would be logical to assume that the yokai version has the same diversity of colors with basically no sexual dimorphism. This is pretty much all we know of the Hanzaki. There is an Utagawa Kuniyoshi woodblock painting depicting a salamander fighting a person called Hanagami Danjo Nojo Arakage, but this does not seem to be linked to the Hanzaki yokai and might simply be an exaggerated version of the animal. Unfortunately, I could not find any elaboration on the image itself, so I cannot know for sure. Either way, the question remains. Is there any level of plausibility to the legend? For obvious reasons, I'm referring to the massive proportions, not the post-mortem haunting. Well, the answer is mostly no. The average giant salamander in the wild reaches around 60 to 70 centimeters in length, but in captivity they may very well grow to more than twice that size, clocking in at around 1.5 meters. There are a few larger species of salamanders, namely the Chinese and South China salamanders, close relatives of our Hanzaki. However, even the largest captive specimens of those are about 20 centimeters shy of 2 meters. There is some variation in the distinct versions of the legend, but the beast of Yubara measured around 10 to 11 meters from head to tail, with a girth of 5 meters. These dimensions immediately jump out, not only for how colossal this makes the beast, but how short it is compared to the body girth. If you look at a regular giant salamander, you'd be hard pressed to find one that is half as wide as it is long. Based on the floats and the lack of reference to warped proportions, we can extrapolate that this is just an exaggeration. It must be, even canonically, so let's go with the 10 meters of length. Now, as you might have guessed, there is a reason extant species of amphibians do not really grow to such massive sizes, even if we look past the difficulty of obtaining enough food to reach, let alone maintain such a body. This is nothing like the case of the Leviathan lobster gods. We cannot fatten a poor salamander indefinitely. We are talking about an extremely ancient design that has barely changed over the past 20 million or so years. It is debatable whether their skeleton could handle such a mess outside the water, but they might have trouble even submerged. Their respiratory system isn't the most efficient, as they rely on epidermal gas exchange. They breathe through their skin, and even the relatively modest 1.5 meter individuals can struggle with that. The reason they have such skin flaps and folds around their necks is to increase the surface area through which they can exchange gases. One might spot a salamander lifting the tip of their head out of the water and absorbing air, but that is a tad bit different. They have one single lung, which primarily serves as a way to control their buoyancy. While it provides more evidence that fish swim bladders evolved into lungs for terrestrial animals, this offers little comfort for our colossal Hanzaki. Even with the adaptations they have, giant salamanders inhabit cool rivers which are rich in oxygen and provide a constant supply of fresh water. Warm, still waters are insufficient at their body size, as is air. They rarely venture onto land and prefer to spend most of their time underwater. If we make them roughly 10 times larger, you can expect them to both have a difficulty obtaining enough oxygen from the freshest of waters and fit in those freshest of waters in the first place. Beside the troubles with breeding, they'd also have issues when it comes to hunting. Their eyesight is poor, relying mostly on a lateral line-like feature. It is a row of sensory cells that detect disturbances in the water. Therefore, the only things they can efficiently hunt are underwater. Even if they have enough muscle strength to make sudden movements, I doubt they could catch enough food with a gulp to make it worth the expended energy. Granted, their metabolism is extremely slow, so they can technically wait for just the right moment. They can hope for crabs deciding to congregate and lay their eggs in their mouth, I guess. One thing that giant salamanders can do, and is not mentioned for the Hanzaki, is their slime attack. When threatened by predators, they can excrete a rather pungent, sticky, white mucus which dissuades many attackers. It apparently resembles the smell of Japanese pepper, which is why they are more widely known by the name pepperfish. However, since this ability is omitted from the legends, we can safely ignore that when creating the realistic version of the beast, which we are about to do. Now, most of the difficulties I've listed for the giant salamanders to reach the 10 meter length make amphibians an unlikely option for us. Granted, we will not stray too much further. While such a bulk is an unlikely proposition due to the difficulty of obtaining enough food, we can more or less replicate the legendary Hanzaki as a reptile or something very close to that. Crocodilians are absent from the island and therefore their niche is somewhat open. I say somewhat because salamanders themselves occupy a small part of it. We'll run the danger of dooming them to extinction, but this is the best solution we have. An aquatic creature with lungs, proper eyesight, better mobility on land, and an appetite for larger prey is what we need to create. However, it is part of the Hanzaki lore that their heads are round, which is not something we can claim, even for an alligator. Still, for ambushing prey from the water, having at least somewhat of an elongated jaw is a bonus as it increases reach. Therefore, whatever we make, it will have a mildly protruding nose, since natural selection would undoubtedly make that happen. So, if we go with slightly round-headed, not quite crocodilian creatures, labyrinthodonts are a nice fit. While they are not a formally recognized group, we can do some window shopping. Some of these animals appeared as far back as the Devonian. A number of them are primitive amphibians, while others had more reptilian builds. We are after the latter, which means that, at the very least, the ancestors of the giant Hanzaki were temnospondyls, or, more precisely, a species of Capitosauria. The paleontologically inclined might have already realized we are talking about the clade Mastodonsaurus belongs to. Indeed, we are in the ballpark of the largest amphibian ever to have lived, according to our current knowledge. A flumpy-looking 6-meter-long animal not unlike the caricature of an alligator. However, the species that is far closer to the giant salamander in terms of looks is Edingerella madagascariensis, a Madagascan capitosaur. It is not particularly closely related to Mastodonsaurus and will likely be a distant cousin of our monster in the making as well. That being said, most of its body structure is just like what we need. A somewhat primitive, amphibian tail, the right body shape, and an elongated but still distinctly round head. Unfortunately, their size probably roughly matched that of white giant salamanders, meaning below a meter. If we want to increase that even to a much more reasonable 3 meters, there should be a few changes, mainly regarding the legs. The limbs need to be longer and wider, giving them enough muscle to carry around that body on land, perhaps even give chase or charge at opponents. The tail itself seems capable enough for swimming and launching the animal at their prey from below the waves, but with the increased mass comes the necessity to be more versatile. They need to be able to effectively hunt larger animals like serow, boar, deer, even crane or hare. Fish are all well and good, but the more possible avenues for sizable prey, the better chances they have at reaching at least a fraction of the legendary size. Plus, this is part of the lore. The Hanzaki of Yubara ate meals of terrestrial origin. As for their outer layer, it can be scaly, but a tough wart-covered hide would also suffice. They no longer need to be able to breathe epidermally, so there is no real wrong answer here. Still, I'd say we go with what we know and give them scutes that resemble warts. Basically, crocodile skin imitating a rocky surface. Protection and camouflage. The eyes, unfortunately, will have to remain where they are on this reconstruction. They are in an okay position for underwater stealth, meaning that only a bit of the head needs to emerge from the water to be able to survey the surface. A more prominent position atop a flat head would be the best, but this will have to do as we do not want to stray that far from a salamander appearance. Look at these goofy little peepers. They don't offer much, but are still part of the overall aesthetic. What we have on the realistic Hanzaki is significantly different, and I'd rather not push it even further. We cannot really hide the eyes, as vision is imperative if they want to hunt anything not submerged in water, and better vision means their peepers will not be amphibian googly eyes. We also still have the question of size, but honestly, even 3 meters is probably pushing it. Japan does not have many large predators. Asian black bears and Usuri brown bears, with body length of around 2 and 3 meters respectively, are the biggest. However, their diet is rather diversified and not solely reliant on meat. Herbivores are also on the more modest side of things, with the likes of white boars and sika deer constituting the higher end. Dugongs, seals, and some lesser cetaceans might also be options, but not for inland Hanzaki, which would have to be a good chunk of the population. The Hanzaki has the benefit that they are ectothermic with a slow metabolism, meaning the same amount of energy lasts a good while longer. Even then, I cannot justify them reaching the bulk of the largest American alligators or an average saltwater crocodile. The reasons include the difference in available foods and habitats, as well as weather. Western Japan might be sufficient at heating their comparatively small bodies during the warmer half of the year and not freeze them to death during winter months. Same applies to Okinawa, but such a large, cold-blooded animal might not survive on the northern half of the island, especially in areas with heavy snowfall. Fortunately for us, Yubara fits neatly into the warmer regions, so no issues with the legends there. And our streak of luck does not end here. The cold mountain streams and rivers are perfect for the actual giant salamanders. Hanzaki can occupy waters with a higher average temperature, including ponds and lakes, perhaps even the coastline, anywhere with sunshine and prey to catch. Therefore, we do not have to give up one for the other. Additionally, this helps our teeny-weeny 3-meter monstrosities actually be the animals behind the stories. While considerably lesser than the tale suggests, this is still an extreme size for a dangerous predator. Humans and livestock are well within the range of prospective prey. Posing an actual threat, it would only give credence to some far-fetched ideas and common exaggerations. It is also easy to draw a connection between the massive quote-unquote tadpoles in the form of the salamanders and the larger adults in the form of our Hanzaki. It is only a small leap in logic to theorize they grow even larger, since there's quite a difference already. I could even see someone finding themselves in the process of being swallowed, desperately cutting open the animal's belly in an attempt to escape. Given time, the legend of the 10-meter monstrosity of Yubara could be born. In reality, getting swallowed is significantly less likely to happen intentionally, but that is the beauty of legends. They can make absolute blunders seem like heroic feats. So there we have it, a convergently evolved crocodile-like animal with a bad rap. It is difficult to capture the adorable goofiness of the so-called pepperfish and still make an animal that can survive outside their very specific niche. I think we succeeded, more or less. That being said, there's still the question of naming, which falls a bit flat. Salamanders can regenerate quite well, but that is unlikely to be the case for something so different, and so big for that matter. For lack of a better word, the Hanzaki would be more advanced in terms of body structure and composition, making the regeneration of bones, muscles and hide a daunting task. I have spent quite a bit of time investigating this impressive ability, specifically for axolotls, while I cannot say I fully understand its intricacies, especially since said research is still ongoing. I do believe it would be unfeasible for our monster. Not necessarily in terms of the process, but evolving it for something so drastically different. Anatomy, phylogeny, lifestyle, the survival rate of injuries. Remember, the Hanzaki cannot shoot pepper juice at enemies. I think it is a safer bet to say that the rumors of regeneration come from the salamanders and not the reptiles. As for the baby sounds, that is perfectly within reason. Vocals are a rather liberal part of animals, and something so innocuous as this is well within the range of vocal cords, even if primitive. Yeah, that doesn't sound creepy at all. Well then, we have covered yet another monster. Season 2 is not exactly galloping at the speed Season 1 did, but I do think the extra time given to these projects has improved the episodes I can produce. The research is more thorough if nothing else. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I know it was quite the wait, but it is here now, even if some letters managed to sneak into the playlist first. Thanks for waiting this long. Check the links in the description for peripheral stuff, but that's it for now. World building is next on the platter, and hope to see you then. Bye!